I mean, that cat looked like
Very fluffy.
mildly feral, very fluffy. I saw its tail. It was probably 2 feet tall.
Did you actually steal Jared's cat?
Oh, yeah, bear kitty. Oh, yeah. Hi, kitty.
Hello, welcome to Showboys. We're here. It is Arcane season. Well, not technically not yet, but will be next week. But yes, we're here. We're gonna get hyped for Arcane season 2. We got a full season of nothing but Arcane content. I know the show on Netflix is releasing, in 3-episode chunks, kind of like it did in season 1. But we're going to give you one podcast episode per Arcane episode in a weekly release schedule. So we'll be talking about Arcane for quite some time, which is going to be really exciting. I'm excited about it. Are you excited about it, Nick?
Oh, I'm mad pumped for it. I really enjoyed doing this with Chad for House of the Dragon season 2 this summer. That was a ton of fun, and I think that's where this idea really stuck with me.
Yeah. We have a special host here with us for the season, and it is the one and only Venom from our Discord. And, probably other things, but like most importantly, our Discord. That's where Venom just exists and came from. But no, Venom, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Nice being here.
Yeah. So Pokeboys fan tournament winner of our Infinity tournament. So this will be a nice little warm up for the season you'll be co-hosting on Pokeboys with us. So
that's exciting.
It's gonna be a lot of Venom on the Showboys.
Showboys Venom.
Yes.
Yeah.
But fan of League of Legends and Arcane, Venom. How'd you get into it?
I honestly was introduced to League of Legends in roughly 2016 by one of my athletes while I was coaching cross country one year.
Oh, nice.
Yep. He decided, hey, you should play this video game with me. And then I started following competitive. I didn't really actually start playing the game until about 2020-ish.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I stumbled on League of Legends. Like one of my friends from way back in the day played a little bit, and I played for like maybe a month, but then hated everything about it because it's like the most toxic community in the entire world. And when you're like trying to learn how to play a game and you suck, and then everyone that you're playing with is like, you suck, like why are you alive? You're just like, oh, you know what, maybe this isn't the game for me. But when my oldest child was born, as soon as we got home from the hospital and I was up late nights tending to the babe and all that, I discovered the MLG channel on our Roku, and they had like Dota matches, and I was like, okay. And then I don't think League was on MLG, but I found League on Twitch, and I was like, oh, there's professional gaming, and like they're playing in front of all these people. This is amazing. And I started following it. I think I had a similar path as you did, Venom, where I started watching and then I started playing. I've been watching League of Legends like normal people watch football and baseball and basketball for the last 9 years.
So you started with high hopes.
Yeah.
Watching the pros play, and then you're like, I'm gonna just jump right in and have a grand old time.
Yeah, and then Nick knows
already well past your gaming prime probably as well.
Yes.
Oh yeah. As Nick knows, and any listener from Showboys knows, I had a crippling League of Legends addiction for like 6-7 years. It was the only game I played. But I've since kicked that. But when they announced Arcane, like what, three years ago? Is that what we found out? Today or yesterday?
No, announced it probably 4 or 5 years ago.
I think it was you, Venom, that pointed out that it's already 3 years ago since season 1.
2021 was season 1, so they would have announced it probably a year or so before that.
Yeah, got super hyped, and the show delivered, like exceeded expectations, was amazing. So really excited to be covering season 2 here, and we have just a few short days until it hits Netflix and we could watch it. But tonight, thought it'd be fun to just kind of recap all the important happenings from season 1, so we're prepared. Love to talk about maybe some Easter eggs we saw in season 1, and then of course speculate and talk about all the things we're excited to see in season 2. But before we get into it, thank you to our top tier patrons, Tim B, Yusuf H, and Joe C. You guys are amazing. Your support means the world to us. If you want to know what Patreon is or what our Patreon has to offer, head to patreon.com/showboyspodcast. Check it out. You can get exclusive episodes, early access to episodes, all that fun stuff. Go check it out. Sign up today. Now that that's out of the way, Nick, we're giving away something in the finale.
Giving away 2 things, actually.
Yes.
2 things which I have in my possession.
Tell the people about the giveaway.
Yeah. So for this season of Showboys content where we cover Arcane, which we're starting right now, we will be giving away 2 copies of season 1 Steelbook editions. We have the Vi over here, which is the Blu-ray, and then the 4K, which is the Jinx. Which I agree with. Jinx is always very 4K whenever she's on the screen doing things. So I feel like that fits. Whereas Vi is very traditional, like just punch you in the face. Blu-ray, nothing fancy.
Very straightforward.
Obviously, big fans of Steelbooks here at Showboys, so always happy when they do still release a physical copy of something in a nice quality edition. I've been doing that this year. Because I've been slowly getting this itch to be like, I want to own things again. And I was at a Halloween party, OG BB-8's Halloween party.
Shout out. And
one of my best friends from college, he was like, dude, I just illegally download everything again. He's like, I'm just hoarding like all the things that you can't readily find like on streaming services, like really that 2000s, the like 2010s, like random movies and shows that just aren't easily available on the things you commonly have. He's just like, I got VPN and I'm just like ripping it down again. I'm like
terabytes of
full circle, dude, full circle, because I knew of people, I never did, of course, that did plenty of that, right? Just hard drives of just movies. So I thought that was funny that we kind of come full circle. But I've had that itch this year, and I keep, I'll randomly think of something. I'm like, I wonder if there's like a really cool like Steelbook of that.
Yeah.
And like most of the time there's not, and it's really upsetting.
But we got these, and we're giving them away. We'll be giving them away in the finale. All you have to do to enter the giveaway, subscribe to the channel. Make sure your subscription settings on YouTube are made public so we can see that you subscribed. And every episode you can enter by you get like an additional entry for leaving a comment. So subscribe, leave a comment here on the video, tell us what you're excited about, and you'll get 2 entries to the giveaway, and we'll be giving them away in the finale. So look forward to blessing 2 fans of Arcane with some awesome Steelbooks. All right, Venom, you were talking the other day about how heavy and everything season 1 was. You kind of maybe not forgot, but were reminded about just the weighty nature of season 1. And with you probably having the freshest revisiting of season 1 out of the 3 of us, what big story beats do you think we need a refresher on as we head into season 2?
So obviously there was the big point that probably everyone remembers is episode 3, the end of that first act. And that was so the one that stuck. That was the one that stuck with me the most. But there were a lot of other parts in that one. There's just so much going back and rewatching that. You've got three kind of different followings that are going on. You have essentially the story going on with Silco and Jinx.
Mhm.
You have the story following Vi later on, and when she meets up with Caitlyn. And then you have all the stuff going on with Victor and Jace.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of the three main story beats, I think. And each of those has quite a bit that happens. That we probably want to focus on probably those three lanes.
Yeah. I see what you did there. That was nice. Of course, Victor and Jace, they would probably be like the middle lane, and then
Jace
probably, we'll stick Silco and Jinx in bottom lane, and then I don't know, Vi and Kate, a very weird top lane matchup. I don't know. Yeah, so let's touch on Silco and Jinx first, because you brought up episode 3. The end of episode 3, of course, is the fracturing of Powder and Vi's relationship there. Dude, the end of that episode is so tragic. Nick, episode 3, the end of that, is that fresh in your memory?
Yeah, I was watching it while Legoing. So just like over my little half wall, I can see my TV just in all of its arcane beauty, because that show, like, it's just so beautiful. First off, but
No.
I mean, episode 3, I'll see, like, they just gradually, like, you're like, wow, this show just looks really good, and then like episode 3 happens, and you get a lot of action, and it just really, at the time, the reason why that like landed for me was because it reminded me of like the first time you watch season 1 of Attack on Titan, where you're kind of like hit really early on with like a big reveal or like just a ton of action. You're like, what am I watching? Like, I don't expect this typically.
Why is
like
everyone
the end of
yelling?
Yeah. So yeah, episode 3, it just, it's like, did I just watch the finale? Like, what are we doing here? Like, is that it? And on top of like in my opinion, unconventional like release style, right? Like 3 at a time, 3 arcs, 3 periods. It just works so well. And I was definitely, reminded. I was like, oh yeah, this is why this show slaps. Like, really hard.
So Silco is kind of like the Zahn like crime boss, like drug lord.
He's kind of like a penguin in my mind. Like, he and he wants to be, and then he becomes.
Yeah, I don't think he really starts out there, because obviously you have the whole do you know what it's like to drown, or the
little monologue thing.
Yep. But you have that whole thing with Vander and Silco that we don't really know what they kind of got into a rift over, but obviously they started out as kind of the two respected leaders of, well, the lanes as it's technically called, but this revolution that they're trying to lead to become an independent and free nation. And at some point in the past, Vander and Silco have a falling out, which is where Silco gets the wooden eye in the river incident.
Mm-hmm.
And Vander ends up actually kind of becoming the de facto leader of the lanes and the respected head, and Silco kind of regroups in the background, and then you see throughout the episode him kind of taking on that crime boss, and then once Vander is out of the way, taking over more and more power within the lanes.
Yeah,
it's like good dad, bad dad.
Right,
like
right,
Silco's
right.
bad dad, Vander's good dad.
So there's an obvious conflict between Piltover and the lanes, or Zahn, and like Piltover, very educated, wealthy, like clean, just innovation, technology, amazing city. And then you have the like outskirts of Piltover, just literally garbage. Like all of
my understanding is it all used to kind of be Piltover, and then there was some kind of a massive tragedy or accident which actually sunk the lanes down. Down, because Piltover seems like it's almost kind of floating up in the air a little bit or something. And then the lanes, somehow there was some massive, I would assume, technological accident that ended up kind of sinking and I have a cat.
Pay attention to me.
Yes, he's trying to get me to play fetch with him at the moment. So if you're curious,
that's awesome.
The lanes end up sinking in some kind of an accident, and then the air ends up getting contaminated. The water ends up getting contaminated. It's very toxic to breathe, and that's one of the things with the enforcers and everything. You see anyone from top side that has to come down bottom side, they are wearing respirators, and that's very prevalent. And obviously the water infecting Silco and kind of turning his left side of his face all kind of distorted and everything.
The lane's very much the underbelly of Piltover, and then you have Vander and Silco kind of like leading a revolution against Piltover, and then some sort of, like you said, Venom, there's like a disagreement between the two, and they have their little fight and drowning / stabbing.
The classic same end, different means. Disagreement on means.
But they kind of split. You have Vander as kind of like the good, respected leader of the lanes. Then you have Silco kind of like the leader of the underbelly of the underbelly. And Silco's like still very much trying to lead this revolution. He's developing this drug cocktail of sorts that like mutates the taker of this into like a superhuman strength almost, and he's trying to basically create these super soldiers to take on Piltover. And that's kind of what happens. We have at the end of episode 3, he captures Vander, and he's holding him, and Vi and the crew come to save him. And there's just that epic fight scene of Vi on the like walkway while her two buddies are trying to free Vander, and it's just amazing. She has like the old version of her glove from the game, right? She's laying waste to Silco's Goonies, and then Powder like is left behind, comes in, tries to help, throws one of her monkey bombs in, and ends up basically killing everyone except for Vi. And of course, it's tragic because Powder's just trying to help, but we all know the story. We watched it. But you have the fracturing of Vi and Powder's relationship. They're sisters. Silco ends up basically
keeping
like
Jinx
taking in Powder, taking her in, right? Sees her in her vulnerable state.
Well, and the significance there was obviously that Vi was Powder's sister, and Powder says she's not my sister anymore. And Silco looks up at Vander, who was, by all admissions, brothers with Silco, and they had just killed Vander. So there was both Silco and Powder were essentially losing a sibling in that moment.
Yeah.
Wasn't Vi presumed dead though in that situation by Jinx? Wasn't that her understanding?
So they knew she was still alive. She ends up getting captured by one of the enforcers, Marcus, who ends up being a paid hand of Silco on the police force. And Marcus tells Silco that Vi has been dealt with. And by dealt with, he sends her to prison without telling anyone that she's still alive.
Yeah. And of course, Silco and Jinx, their relationship continues to grow. He continues to use her. She continues to just descend into this like psychosis and this altered personality that becomes Jinx. And you get like the just amazing shot in the finale of her shooting off super mega death rocket, like her ultimate at Piltover, which is super cool for people who play the game. Actually, like one of my favorite things is all the playable characters that have combat in the show. Like you can see them using their abilities from the game
Right.
in these fight scenes. And as a person who's played the game for a very long time, every time I would see one, I would just be like, yes, the Leo meme. Literally, I'm just like, they did the thing. They did it. It's amazing.
I mean, those are fun because I never really played that, but if you know like the premise of the show, it's easy to pick up on like, oh yeah, that's a move. Like, because they do it enough on the nose to where it's clearly like a move if you know, but it's also so well done where it's actually just like a cool thing in like the fight scene or something like that. So like it's not odd like the way they don't force those in there.
Jace breaks out his cannon form, and starts blasting, ends up actually killing the son of one of the Chem Lords. And
there's I think in the middle, isn't there a fight scene with Vi and Jace?
Where Vi gets the gauntlets and
she Jace like uppercuts him, and it's like literally her ultimate. Like,
I
was like, yes. I used to play Vi a ton, so I was like, that I freaking love Vi. So many cool things. I love just a little Easter egg that's right at the very beginning when they're parkouring on the rooftops in Piltover as they like go, to break into the apartment or whatever. And they go over Caitlyn's, I don't know if it's actually her apartment or not, but there's like cupcakes on the little balcony. And one of her moves, she lays little traps that when you walk into it, it stops you as the player. And then if you auto attack that person, it does like a ridiculous amount of damage. But in the center of her traps are cupcakes, and everyone calls her that move, watch out for her cupcakes or whatever. So it's like to see the cupcakes all over the place is just awesome. So the Silco Jinx line. Then we have what was the second one you said? I know there's Jace and Victor.
Caitlyn, Vi.
Okay, let's take us through that one, Venom.
So
things we need to know.
So obviously we made it through episode 3. Vi gets captured by Marcus and kind of disappears. Of course, at the end of episode 3, you get a pretty good time jump before episode 4 happens. That's kind of Act 2 start. Vi is presumed dead, and we start following Caitlyn, who was she's the daughter of one of the council members, and is kind of being led to follow in her parents' footsteps as some kind of a dignitary or something of the sort. And she has always wanted to go out on her own, so she becomes a enforcer herself, and doesn't really play well with the rules, and wants to starts going around and trying to solve some of these crimes that are starting to happen by Silco as they expand topside with their shimmer business. And push come to shove, Caitlyn ends up releasing Vi from prison to show her the underground and lead her to Silco. And you get the dynamic of them, Vi not really wanting anything to do with Caitlyn, and Caitlyn obviously being responsible for now having released someone from prison and trying to get to the bottom of this crime that is happening. And they slowly become closer and closer throughout the show.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about Caitlyn, though, is like she kind of fills a void naturally that Mbessa Medarda.
Heard. Oh, yes. I know.
Like she was
the
kind of
new
like
playable character in League of Legends.
yeah, shout out. Like she was kind of like the good enforcer that like worked with Vander to like keep the peace and all that stuff in the first 3 episodes. So I feel like Caitlyn kind of like filled the
Oh, no.
necessary
Oh,
void.
the original sheriff, not
Yeah.
Mbessa is
Mbessa's a new. Yeah, she comes towards the end of the season.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
but I know who you're talking about. It's
I don't
voiced by our
remember.
favorite, actress from The Expanse. Of course, I can never say
Avalanche.
her name because her name's crazy.
Yeah, sorry, wrong name. But yeah, she just kind of like fills that like good cop void that is created because obviously we have bad cop kind of running the show poorly with Silco.
I believe the enforcer you're thinking of, I think her name's Grayson.
Grayson, yes.
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love too, of course, like Caitlyn is kind of like the linchpin that ties all 3 arcs together. Because you have Caitlyn and Vi on one side, and then you have Caitlyn and Jace on the other side. They're, friends, and Piltover kind of grew up-ish together. Caitlyn's parents endorsed Jace, right?
In the academy, yeah.
Because he was like
just a poor boy.
Because, by the way, shout out, little Easter egg. Jace was saved by what appears to be Rise, character from League of Legends. Of course, he's not wearing his blue skin from the game, but he's got like runes all over his body, and he of course uses the Rise ultimate. Like, yeah. So Jace arrives in Piltover basically as an orphan. Well, not really, because his mom or the lady survives.
That's the bit at the very beginning of the show, right?
It's early on, maybe like episode 2 or whatever. Like whenever they introduce Jace, it starts with that.
Because they obviously the crime spree that the kid Vi and Powder and the 2 friends go on, they end up stealing a whole bunch of stuff from Jace's house, and they use that as a segue. Right. Then episode 2, I believe, starts out following the Jace side of that story, because they end up kind of blowing up his house.
Yeah, because I remember on the rewatch, I was like, because I was like, what is happening? I'm like, where does this fit in? And then now that makes sense. That was kind of like the Jace.
And that was his like, because in that sequence, Rise uses a Hex Tech crystal or shard. And that's kind of what like sends Jace down the whole like Hex Tech like research, like that whole obsession. So yeah, that kind of, I mean, Caitlyn's story of the 3 lanes is probably it's still significant, but of the 3, the least significant, because Jace Victor over here on the other side with Heimerdinger and the council and Piltover and their development and research, and then implementation of the Hex Tech, the teleporters and all that fun stuff, is also very important. Kind of cool to see Victor like before he becomes like this cyborg human amalgamation that he is in the game, and I wonder if we'll get anywhere close to that in the show, but
almost have to.
His character in the show is like a 180 of his character in the game, because he's
I'm assuming he essentially has to bond with that hex core that they call it, and it somehow kind of corrupts him or something along the way. But that is definitely one of the season 2 beats that they need to hit.
Yeah,
because at the end of this, he has that turn, right, where he understands what his mentor, which is Silco's like scientist man. Yeah, like shows up at his workshop in the sewers and is just like, I get it now.
Yeah. And like, I feel like you'd like Victor, like the character in the game. Yeah, because he's got a cool kit. He's got like this weird like robot arm over his shoulder that shoots lasers and stuff. Just like right up your alley.
I've always wanted one of those.
And then spawns a thunderstorm that follows people around.
Oh yeah, I would do that to Mike all the time if I could.
He has to be on the other team. Well, I guess you can control where it goes, I believe, right?
That's true. You can.
So he could just grief the team and just make it follow Mike all over.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, so where do we end in season 1? Like, what is the immediate story that's playing out in the finale of season 1, right before season 2 kicks off?
So, season 1, the last episode, it almost feels like they wanted to show more, because the last episode, a lot happens very fast, and it feels like you end up missing a little bit of how we got from place to place. But essentially, you have Jace has become head of the council.
Tyrant.
Council. Heimerdinger has been voted off the council. And so you have a big meeting going on because Mel, Victor's lover / manipulator of sorts, kind of Mel's mother ends up showing up, and she is a general for the, I believe, Noxian army.
Yes.
The Fire Nation. Oh, wait, wrong show.
Dude, you, Nick, oh my gosh, you would 1000% be Noxian. Like,
really?
No doubt about it.
There has to be a test. Is there a test I can take? We should. There's
got to be a test.
I'm sure.
That'll say what nation you're from or something.
You would be Noxian without a doubt.
Please. Oh, sidebar. Are Caitlyn and Jace romantically involved or just like friends?
So,
because when I was rewatching it, I missed it because it obviously just the part where him and Mel hook up.
Yeah. So
I'm like, wait, is that like a turn against Caitlyn?
I think it was leading towards them being kind of romantically involved, but I don't believe they ever were. And because obviously Jace being sponsored by Caitlyn's parents, they became very close and hung out a lot. But about the time that you would think they would take that next step is when Jinx ends up blowing up that building and injures Caitlyn, and Caitlyn ends up getting kicked off the police force, and Jace comes to offer her a job in his office, and Caitlyn turns it down to kind of go on her own path.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to remember that because I was like, how spicy is this hookup? Because it's spicy because they're both on the council. That's spicy. I feel like that's a big one now.
Yeah. They definitely lead you into thinking that it's going to be Caitlyn and Jace, and ends up kind of going Caitlyn and Vi there towards the end.
That is true. I'm trying to see if they have.
I found a quiz. I don't know how legit it is.
Medarda's mother. What is her name? Mbessa, right?
Mbessa, yeah.
Yes, she, not Grayson, is actually about to be released in League of Legends. So that's kind of cool that we saw a character from the show get introduced into the game.
This map you sent, Mike, is useful because I did not realize that Piltover and Zon are basically Constantinople, or Istanbul, as modern day known as. I thought there was just like a river between them, but it's like actually a continental divide.
Yeah.
No, it is. Don't side me.
It's kind of like it's like Venom said. They're like literally like right on top of next to.
Yeah, so it would have been. I'm assuming. I mean, the map obviously doesn't give you a good look of it, but I'm assuming, given their location, there's a river that would run between the two of them, and that's where the bridge of progress for Piltover is the bridge that you enter from Zaun into Piltover. But that bridge would go across that river, and with where Piltover is located, they end up becoming a major trade port, and that's where all the money and everything for them comes in. So yeah, that ends up the divide ends up happening across that river, where the southern side ends up having the disaster, and the northern side continues to prosper.
Yeah, and the map cites them as dual city states, whereas like something like Noxus to the north is just a brutal expansionist empire.
Exactly, right up your alley, dude. I'm telling you.
What do you think of me?
I've heard you talk about your Total War campaigns and your Civ games. By the way, the map we're talking about, if I remember, I'll link it in the episode description. It's just the interactive League of Legends map on Riot's website. It's actually a really, really cool map if you're into maps and things like that. But yeah, so we talked about the major story beats. We talked about some of the characters from the show. I wanted to just touch on quickly some of the other playable characters that we didn't mention that made appearances in the show. Of course, we have Vi, Jinx, Caitlyn, Jace, Victor, Heimerdinger, of course. But Echo also makes an appearance, and not just an appearance. He's like a pretty big minor character. That kind of statement kind of contradicts itself, but he's one of the more prominent minor side characters in the show. And of course, when we're introduced to him, he's a little kid, and then by the end of the show, he's like, how much time do you think passes?
So you get the very first episode starts out showing a real young Vi and Powder finding out that their mother has been killed in the revolt,
like the first rebellion thing.
Yeah, in the first rebellion that Vander leads. And then you have a jump. I would assume the first jump you probably got Powder's maybe 10. I guess I don't really know. And Vi might be 13, 14, something like that. Mm-hmm. I believe the main part of this, let's see, because then you would have had another big jump again. So Vi might be somewhere around 20-ish. Jinx might be in her late teens. And Echo seems to be about the same age as Jinx would be.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe like late teens, like at most like 20.
Right.
Yeah, Echo. Singed, of course, you brought up. He is Silco's little like sewer magician, scientist guy.
Apparently, at some point, was associated with Heimerdinger and the Academy, and ended up splitting with Heimerdinger because Heimerdinger, of course, being a Yordle, lives a very long time and is not in any kind of a hurry to make significant progress when it comes to technology. And Singed, obviously, well, that's one of the stories that I hope we get more of in season 2 is more about what caused the rift with Singed, because he at one point in, I think, episode 7 or 8, where he needs to save Jinx, he mentions to Silco, before he knocks Silco out during the operation, he mentions to Silco something about Singed had a daughter, and I'm kind of curious what happened there.
Yeah.
If it was like a Victor situation where Singed wanted to save his daughter and Heimerdinger stepped in and prevented him from being able to do that.
Oh, that'd be juicy.
That was one of my favorite like moments was when they kicked Heimerdinger off the council, and they're basically like, humans don't have hundreds of years to like dwell on like the best thing to do. And I'm like, dang. I'm like, that's a major rift between species right there. I'm like, Poor Heimendinger. He's like, I've seen it all, and they're all like, we don't care.
Right. Well, and Heimerdinger was there when Piltover
Yeah.
was originally founded. He's one of the founders, and he was there during the Mage Wars, and that's why he's so against Jace continuing with this arcane test and development. Is he's seen what it can do in the wrong hands.
Yeah. What did I think Heimer says? Maybe he's like 300 something years old. Like when he's
he's like 347 or something.
Yeah, he mentions it to Jace when Jace is locked up there in like one of the first.
I think Jace
episodes.
says he's like 24. I think Jace is 24 in that section or something. Yeah.
Yeah, interested to see more about Singed because in game he is like the most troll character ever.
Waiting for him to just run around and start throwing people over his head.
Yeah, Nick in the game he has just this big like poison gas vat strapped on his back, and he just like leaves poison trails everywhere he walks.
Heimendinger?
No, Singed.
Oh, Singe.
So like he basically
Is Heimendinger a character?
Heimdinger's a character, yeah.
People just build up his move speed, and he like flips people over his back, and then like just trap him in poison, and then they just slowly die. And he's
Poison
like,
brute poisoner.
Rule number 1 of League is don't chase Singed.
Yeah, but everyone does.
You want to try and kill him, and he just runs around, and as you chase him, you're just running through his poison trail, slowly dying.
Yeah, he's really annoying. Not fully revealed in the show, but a lot of speculation that one of the last things we see of Singed, we actually see Warwick's hand claw thingy in his lab hanging, and a lot of speculation too that maybe that's Vander, that Vander becomes Warwick, which would be kind of a cool little backstory.
I'm kind of curious because there's 3. I have not read any of the lore and deep dives and stuff on. There's people that have been theorizing this stuff for 3 years at this point. Yeah. But my understanding is that Warwick in the game says at some point that he used to be a sheriff or something, which doesn't necessarily fit with Vander's character, but it would make sense for it to be Vander's character. But if they're trying to tie the two together, it almost makes me think, is he bringing back like Marcus or Grayson as well? But it's probably just going to end up being Vander. But
maybe I can shoehorn it by saying that Vander is kind of the sheriff of the lanes.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, he's kind of like the peacekeeper and the one that everyone kind of listens to. So if I wanted to like really help Riot out,
right,
like, maybe that's what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things we discussed before doing this a couple weeks ago, is that the world of League of Legends wasn't originally really meant to have all of this other cinema going on in the background.
Oh, yeah.
And none of the lore was really meant to, it was flavor text. And they've had to slowly go through and change a lot of the lore.
They totally retconned like the entire universe and like,
right.
Like, because originally, like you were saying, the player behind the mouse and keyboard, we are a summoner, and we're just literally controlling people on the battlefield.
Well, because there was the whole thing about, these mage wars and everything going on, and the premise was that you, the summoner, were then some kind of a wizard or something that could control these characters to go out and basically do your bidding for you.
Yeah, I love the new direction that they went in, like, I don't know, 7, 8, however long ago it was when they decided to make that change. But yeah, so Singed and then possibly Warwick. We mentioned Rise. Kindred is one that's maybe not so obvious, but when they're kind of like panning through the brothel in an early episode. You have somebody in a lamb mask and somebody in a wolf mask laying there. Another thing about Vander being Warwick that I wrote down, in episode 1, one of the shady traders in the tavern calls him the Hound of the Underground.
Right.
Just saying. Timo makes an appearance in a book in Marcus's daughter's room. It's a little picture of Timo. No one wants to see Timo. See that?
That's why he's put
Don't
on,
eat
but
those cupcakes.
No. Yeah, definitely not. And then, of course, Ambessa Medarda, now a playable character, but yeah, she's Mel's mother, comes late in the season. And she's releasing on November 6th. When is this episode going live? The 5th? Tomorrow. You could play as Ambessa Medarda, the newest Noxian champion.
For season 1, they also released Zeri, I believe, but we don't ever really get to see her in season 1.
Oh, is she like tied to the show?
I believe she's from Zaun, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But I don't know where she ties in.
Are there any? So this is probably, well, not probably, obviously more of a question for Venom than Nick. But are there any characters that you're hoping to see make an appearance in the show here in season 2?
Yeah, so Zeri is from Zaun, so it'll be interesting to see if she shows up at all in the second season. Like I said, I have not personally dug in much to the lore actually behind League of Legends. Lore is always one of those things that I'm really, really interested in, but don't want to actually go and do the work to piece it all together. So I really enjoy when they do the shows and music videos and all that kind of stuff that show what's going on. So I don't know which ones we're really missing. Like I said, I hope they expand on Singed a little bit, because he was very, very much a background character in the original season. And then obviously we'll get to see when Mel's mother comes in. Obviously, I think she's going to have a large part in this coming season if they do end up having this war going on between the two, being that she is a Noxian general. So it'll be interesting to see how they expand the characters that were already there. Also, we need more on Echo as well to see his development.
Yeah, for sure. One thing, I don't know Dr. Mundo's lore at all, but the first thing I thought about seeing the guy that Vi fights in episode 3, that's under the effects of Shimmer, like the purpleness of it, like the big hulking, like Dr. Jekyll almost, appearance, just made me think of Mundo, and I was like, is this going to be somehow how we get Dr. Mundo? But looking at from the map here, the champions associated with Piltover, we have Camille, Caitlyn, she's in the show already, Ezreal, Jace is in the show already, Orianna, Vi, and Heimer. So the 3 characters that we haven't seen from Piltover, Orianna, Ezreal, and Camille. I could see maybe Camille, because she, Camille would be sick with her like blade legs. That'd be just.
There's been theories about Camille, and I think some of them were that possibly Caitlyn's mom after the bomb coming in, because I've actually went through and watched some of the upcoming trailers and whatnot, and the assumption is that obviously some of the council dies coming into season 2, and Caitlyn's mom is one of the people that is conveniently left out of any of the trailers coming up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to her.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Camille would be cool. I don't know how Oriana would play into it because she's just like, this mechanized. uh, and Ezreal, I would think Ezreal, if we would see him in an Arcane like show, it would probably be tied into something um, around Shurima or some sort of like
Indiana Ezreal.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Indiana Jones like exploration story. But looking at Zaun, there's many more characters from Zaun on the map. Of course, we have Jinx and Echo and Victor. And we talked about Warwick a little bit, and Singed. Mundo is from Zaun. So maybe, I don't know. We'll just throw that bold prediction out there. Maybe Mundo is a result of Shimmer. But Twitch also maybe could be a result from Shimmer. He's just like a mutated rat with a Tommy gun, which is terrifying.
There was a big in season 1 when Shimmer first gets introduced. They put the cat in the tank and feed the rat. There was people that were wondering, is that Twitch?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Zach, I don't know how that would tie in. He's just literally like a blob of goo. But we do have another Yordle. Ziggs would be kind of interesting, but again, not sure how that would tie in. But there's also Blitzcrank, Janna. Not sure. But the last champion that I could see maybe somehow being Urgot. So Mundo and Urgot, maybe I could see being introduced. I think
you could possibly get Blitzcrank too.
Blitzcrank
some kind of a construct, basically.
Yeah,
it depends on how far they go into an arms race between the two sides.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see Ziggs too.
Right.
But I'm very intrigued. I really think Mundo might in some way show up, whether or not he's like an actual meaningful character or just like an Easter egg that pops up. Like, just what Shimmer did to the people that took it just really made me think of Mundo. So like that's my bold prediction. Mundo will be a result of Silco and Shimmer. But yeah, Nick, what are you looking forward to in season 2? What do you want to see? Whether it's character development wise, story arc wise, like what are you looking for?
This will be something that we'll probably need to keep tabs on, especially as we approach the end of this season, which is supposed to be the end of this story. Is how they approach future installments of the animated series. So, I'm looking forward to getting those hints and glimpses of like, is it purely going to be like a disconnected anthology kind of series where we're going to get a lot of very separated but obviously worldly related stories, or right, are we going to kind of follow like the map for somewhat? Like, does the result of this season result in like a neighboring faction getting involved, or like does the story organically move to the next tier or next thing in the world? Which makes it a little bit more connected, right? That this will be the end of these characters and their stories. So just how much on the anthology spectrum are we versus like a continuation of the same lore?
Right.
So that's what I'm excited to see is like, I was already very impressed with their structure of this show, right? I love the 3 arcs, like I said, 9 episodes. So I'm very interested in their macro approach. Like, what is their plan forever to do?
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot to potentially cover. So they have a good foundation. So I'm just very interested to see how they land the second season and then plan to continue it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, you're 100% correct. Like season 2 is the end of this particular story. I don't know if they have said anything about it just being the end of like animated shows, because that would be a tragedy.
It's just the end of this story. They've talked about they have ideas for where they want to go next, but this will be the end of this arc. So it'll be really interesting to see. Do we get some kind of a Game of Thrones where people just start falling left and right, or what? How do they conclude this separation between the sisters and the two cities?
Maybe as they move through the show and they like kill off like playable characters, that's how they end up in the game.
They remove them from
they start removing them from the game because they've got too many characters in the game now.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That too.
Like, finally we can stop patching and hotfixing these stupid characters. But to your other point, Nick, where you're talking about like if it's a clean break or if
are they going to give us like little hints? Like, I just wonder how much they're going to like give us.
They have already begun that. Like, if they want to, not a continuation of this story, but a relation of this story. We were already introduced to a character from Noxus, like Mbessa coming to Piltover, already could lead us north on the map and into that part of the region of Runeterra. And I was telling you last night we were recording Patreon and just like hanging out in Valheim and talking about stuff, and I started talking about Arcane, but then I had to stop myself so I'd have stuff to talk about tonight. But what I would love to see as a future show is something about Noxus and Demacia. Like, that would be so epic. And they've left a little breadcrumb trail to follow them north to Noxus, with Mbessa being introduced. So
and depending on, because obviously Piltover is an extension of Noxus with where it's located being so strategic. And as a trade point, that's why Noxus is so interested in how this war ends up turning out. And it'll be interesting to see, does the happenings of Piltover and Zaun, does that then affect Noxus in a negative way, and what are the repercussions after this conclusion?
And do we see any other Noxian characters like Darius or Draven or Swain? Like Swain's a big like general, so like that would be cool. Also, a character that we didn't mention from Zaun, who's kind of new to the game. I say new, but it's been out for like a couple years. But is Renata Glask. A lot of people thought maybe she was in season 1. She's like, or her like sub name in game is like the Chem Baroness or something like that. So I think maybe people thought she was one of the people that was meeting with Silco there, but there's been no confirmation or anything. But maybe she makes an appearance in season 2. But yeah, I am excited to see how they wrap this up. Like, will they actually kill playable characters off, or will they like somehow tie the arcs up enough with everyone still living to where like we kind of got somewhat of a resolution to these stories? Like, how close will these arcs line up to maybe the lore that's already established on Riot's website for these characters? I don't know. I haven't read any League of Legends lore for like, well, since the last time I played several years ago. So I don't know what they've been putting out, but I know last time I played, the stuff they were putting out, like with character releases and updates and stuff, like so good. So
they
good.
went through and did a big lore patch update a few years ago. I haven't played in over a year now as well, so I haven't really been keeping up.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. Like, I mean, it would kind of be silly to kill off any of these playable characters because they're so like big and full of life. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be the end of this
But
story.
how,
So
how do you
does it
conclude
end?
it?
Right.
How do you
Exactly.
conclude it without killing someone off? That's going to be the interesting part.
Yeah. 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 I guess we'll find out. Both excited and a little sad because I don't want it to end, but it's going to end. And if it took 3 years to continue a story they were telling, who knows how long it'll take until we get a new
We're gonna be so
story.
old.
Start a new story, yeah.
We're gonna get so old watching Arcane.
Yeah, we'll do the next Riot animated series season of Showboys from the nursing home. But yeah,
I'm
think
Targon, by the way. But
you're Targon. I mean,
yeah,
I could see that.
yeah, but part of the issue I had with this quiz was like it wanted me to pick things that I have no like. It's just like, yo, pick this stuff, which I'm like, this seems mildly important depending on which one I pick. Like, pick like of these images, the architecture that you like. I'm like,
Oh
okay.
man.
I feel like these are exact locations of exact nations. So I feel like if I pick one, like I'm just gonna automatically.
Yeah. Man. So before we wrap up, of the region of Runeterra, Venom, what section do you think would lend itself best for another animated series like this? Or maybe you could answer that and also like which one would you want, or unless they're like the same answer.
Right. So with some of the other stuff Riot has been doing and has now killed off, they had the Riot Forge program where they put out a bunch of indie developed games. And I believe they followed Bilgewater and the Shadow Isles a little bit in their lore. So I'm assuming they've kind of covered that a little bit. I think there was one that was in Freljord. I know they had a game that followed Ziggs as well. But I think the story that would probably lend itself best to putting into a series like this is going to be the Demacia Noxus stuff going on. There's so much space for grandeur, making just massive battles, and one of the things in season 1 of Arcane that we didn't even really touch on was all of this political intrigue going on that Jace finds himself kind of wrapped up in, and the balance of power between Silco and then the leaders of Piltover, and there would be a lot of that in Noxus and Demacia as well. As you've got these generals in Noxus that kind of go out of their way to conquer, and as far as I know, some of the generals kind of just they just act on their own, so there would be a really interesting stories up there, I think.
Yeah. Plus, you have the whole Demacia like magist thing where they're just so anti-magic, and like if there's any sort of hint of being able to do magic, you're like shunned, they hate you, like you're thrown in prison.
Demacia.
There's so I feel like both of those regions could just have their own separate show, but they're also like they have stuff together. That would be very awesome. But honestly, like the Freljord would be cool too. So you have like Ash and Sejuani and Tryndamere and Lysandra and like the Watchers and all that stuff. Ionia also would be pretty cool. I feel like that'd be up Chad's alley because you have like martial arts, samurai, like you have some ninja stuff, some shadow ninja stuff. Like that would be rad. We could Targon is very much like the pantheon, like Roman god-esque type things. That would be an interesting region to visit. Shurima is very like Indiana Jones discovery, exploration. What is the word I'm thinking? I'm like I can't think of like yeah, just chasing after the legends and myths of like Azir and Renekton and Mumu and all that stuff. It'd be I don't know. There's so much possibility. Like Venom said, they had the Ruined King game that was in the Shadow Isles. You actually had the Mage Seeker where you got to play as Silas in Demacia. The Song of Nunu might be the one that was in the Freljord. Then of course Bandle Tale just came out, which I really not just came out, but that was the most recent one. I want to try that. It's kind of like a cozy little like farming sim for Yordle. Kind of want to play that. There's just like so much potential, and like we were talking about last night, Nick, there's like 170 something playable characters in the game. Like there's a lot of stories that could be told. It's a literal content gold mine.
Well, that's I was just thinking about that.
It's like Blizzard. It's like World of Warcraft. Like so much potential.
Yeah, and I think both the issues are, games can so easily just the way we're so efficient at making games to some degree, right? Like how we can just pump out so much content around them. The quality to like make a good show, like it just takes so much, right? So it's like there's just no. I mean, unless AI like really like gets crafty in that space, like I don't like. There's just so much that has to be done. Like it took them 3 years to make another season. I don't know, what I mean. So like, or the money doesn't make sense. Like, how do you scale something like that? Like, why don't we have like an Arcane per year? Like, why is that? Because I feel like they need to at least be doing that to even attempt to keep up. Otherwise, we are going to be 60 years old in like Arcane season 8, right? Which isn't that impressive in my opinion.
It's hard to imagine why. Well, it's not. I guess maybe it is. These small indie companies like Riot and Blizzard can't put out these top-notch cinematic marvels like every World of Warcraft cinematic trailer or these 2 seasons of Arcane. I don't it must cost a lot more money than those small indie companies are making. I don't know,
especially the one backed by Tencent.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's just I don't know. I don't get it, but whatever. At least we got 2 seasons of this, and hopefully some more stories in the world of Runeterra. Excited to see what happens. Before we get out of here, Venom, you said you played the game. What role did you main, and what champion did you main?
I mostly mained ARAM.
So a little bit of everything.
But definitely more ADC mage. I don't like melee. I'm not the ooga booga go face smash people. I definitely like staying back a little bit more and kind of picking your time. When I did play Summoner's Rift, I was support because no one else on my team can be trusted to do the things that need to be done. And I can't play ADC in Summoner's Rift because you don't have control over the lane. The support has control over the lane.
Yeah.
And
this guy gets it. He gets it.
Yeah.
See,
so
we have the beginnings of a good team right here because I am totally
He's
like
the
I
Ooga
need
Booga.
I need support and like map control, and I can just face smash like stuff.
Right.
He would be Vi. Like he would be Vi.
Oh yeah.
Or Dangerous.
Put him through have him running around in the jungle.
Yeah. What was your support of choice?
Either Morgana or Lux.
Nice. Yeah, I too support main Nami or Sona usually.
Yeah.
If I was feeling spicy, I'd bring in the big tree Maokai. Loved playing Maokai. It's awesome.
Yeah. If I had to do ADC back in season 5 when I first attempted to play, I was a Twitch and Gnar 2-trick.
Oh, Nars. That's a tough one. Gotta manage that rage bar.
Right.
I played jungle first. First, I was a jungler. But then when they removed supportive style junglers from the meta, I don't have the mechanics to play carries at all, period. So I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna be a support now.
I played a lot of Yi jungle. Get flamed for 20 minutes and then win the game and still get flamed.
There was a brief period where because Nick and we used to work together. That's how we met. But we had like an inter-office Heroes of the Storm team and would play Heroes of the Storm all the time. And Nick would just run around the jungle and take all the camps. And it was good times. That game was pretty fun. Got a lot of flack. I feel like undeservedly. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. Turn your subscription settings to public so we can see that you're subscribed. Leave a comment on every episode for an extra entry, and you could take home one of those lovely Steelbooks in the season finale. Hope you're as excited as we are for season 2 of Arcane, and we'll see you in the next episode next week. Till then, have a good one.
Peace out.
All right.
So on YouTube, I don't know if this is there for you, but next to the little YouTube logo when you're watching a video, there's a little like camera, like camcorder, and it says "Meet the Analog Horror Community."
Oh wow!
Finally catching on. We did that years ago.
Yeah, it's only 4 years too late. Well, thanks for joining us, Venom.
Yeah.